I saw Red John come in with a comment before, so I want to throw this up on the screen. He says, how many teams do you guys think have a better receiving group than the New York Jets? So when I'm thinking around the league, the Bengals have a really good one. The Chargers have a good one. The Bears now do have a pretty good receiving core with Claypool and who the heck did they add? Didn't they draft someone and they also signed someone else? They got like 3 new receivers within since the trade deadline.
Let's see.
I'm trying to look
whoever
for...
gets DeAndre Hopkins, that could be an interesting situation. The Raiders have a pretty good receiving core with Renfro and Devontae Adams over there. And they got they got what's his face
they
from
got DJ Moore. They got DJ Moore. That's who they got. That's who we're
looking the Bears. You're talking. Yeah, that's the other guy.
Yeah.
Right. But then who's the receiver from New England that went to the Raiders? The Raiders have a pretty decent
Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, Myers. There's a few. Miami is a good option with Tyreek Hill and Waddle. I would say, I don't know. I like the depth of our wide receiver room. I think there's other receiver groups that I might say okay, if those 2 guys are on the field, they're going to be very, very difficult to guard against. And I think for me, I don't know if Lazard is quite on that level the same way that I worry about Hill and Waddle. But our defense is so good that I don't want to say I don't worry about them, but I have less concern about them. I think there's going to be less teams that can take on our offense than will have difficulty with other teams' wide receivers, if that makes sense. Matt, what are your thoughts on the receiver groups from around the league, and what other teams might have a better receiving group? Philly comes to mind.
Philly, Seattle with Lockett, Metcalf, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think the Jets are roughly middle of the pack, which is fine. When you're looking in your division, Miami's the best by far. Buffalo and the Jets, I would say, is comparable, and then New England's a little bit behind. Cincinnati obviously has a great one. There are definitely, I wouldn't say this is some dominant strength, but the Jets don't have a garbage wide receiver room. I think it's about league average, so somewhere around 15, something like that. I think that's probably fair, and I don't necessarily think you need, would it be nice? Sure, to have a top 5 receiver room, of course, but I think league average is really what they need because they're going to want to run the football a lot, and they have tight ends that they could utilize as well too.
Greenby, what are your thoughts on the Jets receiving core and maybe some of the receiving cores from around the league?
Well, I think we'll be better when we trade Corey Davis for DeAndre Hopkins. That's going to be interesting. That'll be fun when we do that. So that'll
do you think the Hopkins thing happens?
I don't know.
You think we're getting
him? Why not talk about it? We're talking about Aaron Rodgers' freaking calf for an hour.
It'd be cool. Not, man? I saw, I don't know if it was Blewett. I could be wrong. Blewett had something, he mentioned something along the lines of the Jets having $18 million in salary cap space. And that June 1st deadline kind of coming up on DeAndre Hopkins and where he might wind up because he doesn't want, not that he doesn't want to play for Arizona, but because Kyler's out, it doesn't make sense for him to waste a season when he doesn't have that many left. And he doesn't really want to give up his contract because he's earned that contract and he wants to play for the $19 million that would be on said contract. And I saw a rumor that he's looking at Buffalo, he's looking at New England, and Josh Allen's a top 5 quarterback, and it's is he just not saying the Jets to make us all want him more? Is it a little bit of reverse psychology here?
Well, he put out that top 5 of the quarterbacks. It's Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert. Good group. I would say,
sure.
Slightly above average group. He said that, remember, a month or whatever ago, they asked him about certain teams without saying words. And when he came to the Jets, he kind of gave that, I don't want to play for him look. That was before we had Aaron Rodgers. So I think that Aaron Rodgers might be on that list, except that he very recently said that he doesn't want to play for the Jets. So he can't possibly, whatever. I think if the Jets traded for him, he would do it. He would go where he has to go, right? And don't forget too, like if the Jets did, I mean, it's of course hypothetical, right? We're just going down a rabbit hole here. But if we traded Corey Davis as an example for Bernard, I do that all the time, DeAndre Hopkins. If we did that, that's 11 point whatever $million off of our salary cap as well. So then we get D-Hop for essentially $8 million. And we still have $10 million in salary cap space to mess around with Rodgers or put it toward Quinnen or whoever else. It could be an interesting move to make. That all said, so it's not as prohibitive as maybe it feels like adding $19 million to our current cap. It's not quite doesn't really look like that. So when you look at our wide receiver core compared to some others, I mean, the one that pops up to me, Red John, is obviously the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals wide receiving, I mean, dude, their top three is Studley. I mean, with Higgins, obviously Jamar Chase, and then did Boyd stay there? Did Boyd leave? Did anybody leave? I don't think anybody left.
No, I think they're all still there, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. So those guys are going into year 3 or year 4 with Burrow. So I mean, Chase is going into year 3, but that group's been together. I mean, they're cohesive. They're about as good as it gets, in my opinion. Right now, especially when Joe Burrow's as good as he is on top of it. So that they stick out to me as a much better wide receiver core than we have. But ours is good. I think what Matt said around, top 15-esque, Lazard, I think, is better than given credit for. I spent some time this offseason really looking at his highlights of last year. He was their number 1 wide receiver last year, kind of as a default. Aaron Rodgers already has a chemistry with him. They've worked together the whole time. Aaron Rodgers has been with him since he's a rookie, right? So they've been together, Lazard's whole career. And then you add the back end like the Cobbs, and then you just look at the middle, with Garrett Wilson, McCole Hardman, and even Mims. I'm going to throw him in there until I can't anymore. Okay. It's a very solid, and Corey Davis, it's a solid, very solid potential upside, hidden upside group. Denzel Mims and Corey Davis, we've seen them with Zach Wilson, and then, obviously Mims with Sam Darnold and Flacco and Mike White and Streveler and all this kind of stuff. Like, we haven't seen Corey Davis and Denzel Mims with a quarterback the likes of Aaron Rodgers or then Garrett Wilson, throw him in there, and then Lazard and all these guys. And we got a nice solid group, man.